Okay, good afternoon, revolutionary greetings. Welcome one and all. Our first thanks go to Peace in Kurdistan, or PIC as the acronym goes, Comrades Estella, a long Dion of the struggle and the key driver for a number of decades, and more importantly, for bringing us together this afternoon as well. The focus of this symposium is struggles for self-determination in the 21st century perspectives from Africa. And of course, the focus is on Kenya. And we have with us an illustrious group of comrades from the grassroots movements and human rights and activist backgrounds. Before I go to each of our key individuals for this afternoon, I also acknowledge our other stalwarts in the Peace in Kurdistan campaign who are here with us, Comrade Saleh Mamoun and Comrade Jeffrey Minoo, a scholar, academic, activist, and long-time activist for the Kurdish struggle and Kurdish issues, and in particular for the release of Abdullah Öcalan. The guest with us this afternoon is Comrades Gacheke Gachihi, Comrades Wanjira, as well as Waringa Minoo Kia. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. The purpose of the symposium is simply to ensure that us together, not only as activists, but as intellectuals and organic intellectuals, focus on the issues that are primarily against the issues of anti-capitalism as well as neo-colonial projects that are festering and are the very undoing of our communities that are ravaging not only Kenya, Africa, South America, but the globe. We look forward to this afternoon's engagement with our comrades. Comrades Gacheke Gachihi is the coordinator of the Mathare Social Justice Center and a member of the Social Justice Center Working Group Steering Committee in Nairobi, Kenya. He is involved in regional and social movements and politics. He researches and writes about violence, criminalization of the poor, social justice, and social struggles, amongst other areas. His articles and video interviews are published by Rope and Africa as a Country, as well as Verso Books and others. Comrades Wanjira is a grassroots activist who has co-founded the Mathare Social Justice Center and the Matigari Youth Book Club. She is a BA student at the University of Nairobi and a co-host of 3 Liberating Minds podcasts on YouTube and SoundCloud. Comrade Wahome is a political activist and a human rights and social justice lawyer, and the coordinator of the Legal Empowerment Network of the Mathare Social Justice Center and member of the Organic Intellectuals Network of Kenya. Comrade Minoo is a feminist and a political activist from the Mukuru Community Justice Center and the team lead of the Social Justice Center's Traveling Theatre. She champions using art to expose the contradictions of capitalism and consequently patriarchy. And of course, myself, Mahmoud Patel, who is the chairperson of the Kurdish Human Rights Action Group in South Africa, a legal scholar and a long-time activist, as well as a former Umkhonto we Sizwe operative in South Africa. Of course, the program was foregrounded by a document that was shared by our comrades from Peace in Kurdistan that was penned and put together by our friend and comrade, Dr. Jeffrey Minoo. That long 18-page document was together with meetings and the fruition of which was the crisp analysis and foci for what we are this afternoon. Of course, the proposal for the symposium was foregrounded by the challenges that are emerging on the ground in Rojava or northeastern Syria as a praxis and a model of the thinking and thoughts and ideas of the great revolutionary Abdullah Öcalan. Of course, his works, Prison Writings 1, 2, and 3, are well known amongst us and the broader communities in South Africa, Africa, and the globe at large. Of course, the struggles in Kenya have been inspired by his thoughts and ideas. And we understand from the background document that it is not an easy task to understand how those links may be forged for us going forward. Of course, there are challenges, but more importantly, the resilience, the commitment, and the successes of the grassroots movements in Kenya, as well as throughout the continent, are a testament that the inspiration derived from Abdullah Öcalan and his thinking is a key driver for that. Of course, Comrade Jeffrey Minoo quoted extensively on the struggles of others from South America, as well as those from the Black consciousness movement whether it is Cedric Robinson as well as Frederick Douglass and others, to foreground the theoretical understandings on how we can grasp with these challenges that we face going forward. You've heard me with the introductory and opening remarks and the brief bios of all our important cadres that are here with us today, and everyone else here who is here, part of the 10 that are here with us as well, including the introduction given to us, our comrade Shiraz Durrani, our friend comrade Gacheke. I don't want to take more time, but I want to give the floor now to our comrades who are here with us. I know we were informed by comrade Gacheke that he doesn't have a presentation 2 or 3 days ago, but I know the other comrades would also want to present. So, as is customary, the floor is yours, comrade Gacheke, for your remarks and opening statements as well, before we can move on with the comrades who have their presentation with them and would like to share that as and when they continue. And of course, we'll be wary of time to ensure everybody gets a fair opportunity. And then we can engage in discussion, questions, as well as engagement on the way forward, not only with your presentations, but as Comrade Jeff has pointed out, as a group that can go forward, taking the challenges on ahead. Thank you, comrades. Comrade Gacheke, the floor is yours, as they would say. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. That's a very powerful and passionate introduction, very inspiring, and I really appreciate for this opportunity, especially coming from Kenya and with my colleagues. I also thank very much the team that has convened this symposium and webinar, also to help us to amplify our struggle here in Kenya, the work that we have done before, with also Comrade Jeff, and link up with the Kurdish movement in various spaces, whether in Europe and the Kurdish political activists also visiting us here in Nairobi. As Mohammed has said, my name is Gacheke. I coordinate Madare Social Justice Center and also a part of the grassroots liberation movement, which is a space, a political space that we are forging together with the Kurdish political activists. As you know very well, our history is connected and we share the same struggle of self-determination. As you know, in 1999, Comrade Abdallah Öcalan was kidnapped here in Nairobi. And that's show how our struggle is connected with the Kurdish people, with the struggle of self-determination. And this is the history that has unified us. We have done before different campaigns, like Campaign for Free Öcalan. Some comrades have visited us in Nairobi from Germany. And we started that campaign in 2017. And then after that, we got linked up with the Comrade Jeff, who has done a book for Abdallah Öcalan, Freedom and Mind. We did some number of seminars here in Nairobi for self-determination, feminist ecology, and Democratic Confederalism, which is part of philosophy and an idea that Jeff has been asking, that if this is the idea that you can, he has written in his paper, is this the idea that we can think as an African, and in a question of Pan-Africa, that we can try to connect and see whether we can use this idea as a part of reorganizing popular power from below. And the important thing is to say that Kenya has a powerful history, and I'm not the right person to share this history well, because Comrade Shiraz Durrani is here, and he has done a lot of work around Mau Mau, the history of resistance in Kenya, and the betrayal and what has happened with the progressive forces since 1963. But just to give a preview of where we are coming from, we are building from the foundation of these struggles that was engaged by Comrade Shiraz Durrani and many of the university's lecturer students, starting with the December 12th movement, which was a Marxist-Leninist movement that was formed in the university. Then from there we had Moi. Moi was the second president of the Republic of Kenya, dictatorship, and previously we had Kenyatta dictatorship. And this is a condition that birthed up a revolutionary movement from the university and a working class sides. So as a social justice movement, we are building from this history, a history of resistance, a history of self-determination, even if it is our liberation struggle, Kenya Land and Freedom Army. And that's the roots of the social justice movement, which is organized within informal settlement. And we have a number of social justice centers that are shaping up this struggle. We also have organic intellectual networks that is trying to think through social justice movement. It's also linked up to the struggle of the movement that I have mentioned before, and have continued to write and articulate the struggles of our people here in Kenya. So the organic intellectual is continue to borrow and read from the literature that has been developed by intellectuals like Professor Maina Wakenyati, Shiraz Durrani, and also recently we did a small article, book on silence and NGO discourse that is written by Professor Isha Shivji. It's a broad struggle that we're engaging, and this is what this platform is what has connected us with the Kurdish democratic movement. And with that introduction, I think I can offer give my colleagues also to make their introductory remarks.
Thank you so much, Comrade Gacheke, for your introductory remarks and your crisp, salient issues that you have brought to us. Of course, our comrades in any order can go ahead to do their opening remarks. Comrade Minoo, I think I see you there. You are free to go if you are available to go on. And thereafter, our comrades in sequence may continue, whether it's Comrade Waringa or Comrade Wanjira. Please go ahead, Comrade.
Greetings, Comrade. I think I will go first before my Comrade Minoo, and then Comrade Minoo can follow me after. Again, my name is Waringa Minoo. I am a member of Madare Social Justice Center, where I coordinate the legal empowerment network, as my Comrade Mahmoud had said earlier. And also in the grassroots liberation movement, I serve in the position of treasurer. So I'm so grateful again for being involved in this symposium, and of course very much so because we must live in the spirit of internationalism to realize that the struggles of all over the world are also our similar struggles, because we're all fighting one global system which we must fight very hard to overthrow. And of course, my comrade Jeff has done a very good paper on his experience when he was here in Kenya. And of course, what he borrowed from, the struggle of what he describes as the rest of the earth, as far as Fanon has best described them, because they're the lumpenized society, and we of course choose to use the word lumpenized because our society has been deliberately lumpenized, and we don't call them, lumpen societies, because they're lumpenized societies. Even Frantz Fanon, in his analysis, he said that it is among those rest of the earth where the liberation movements can best be grounded. Because those young people have very important tasks, because young people in the informal settlement have a very important task to decide on which side of history they shall fall. Because if they become, if they become intrigues of bourgeois interests, they fall in the same line of, they get to be used by the political class to run their own particular interests. But at the same time, they can take up the chance and fight in the liberation struggles, because they have nothing to lose. They have been denied of every social being that they can have. And of course, the only chance they have is to fight for their own liberation and to fight for their own life, and of course, at the same time, fight for their own dignity. So, yes, Gacheke has given a very rich history, which is one history that we are very proud of, because it shows a history of resistance among our people. It shows a history of resistance among the Kenyan people, because Kenyan people have continually fought against any form of oppression of man by man. Because even, I lose the person that said this, but, I think, we're all fighting every day to defeat human restrictions, to defeat human restriction, denying us food, to defeat human restriction, denying us housing, to defeat human restrictions, denying us every social dignity that we can have. And of course, the fight against neoliberalism continues in our everyday struggles, because what my comrade Jeff has done, even in the document, is that he has, he's showing that even the African people are continually fighting against, intellectual dependency, allow me to call it that, because it will be intellectual dependency of the West. And now African people are coming out and saying that we have our own history and we have our own source of struggle. And our struggles are struggles that we can live to fight. And I know it is a fight that even if we fight, the analysis that even my comrade Gacheke has given, if we borrow from that analysis, it's that resistance struggles are never easy. It's not a walk in the park. It's something that we must sacrifice, and it has to be determined organizing of people so that we can win these struggles. And of course, I think it is what Comrade Jeff refers to, as revolution in consciousness, which is what is going on in our different social justice centers. Because within those centers, we have deliberate political education cells within the different pillars that we have. Because, for example, I coordinate the Legal Empowerment Network, which uses law as a tool to mobilize around the issues that are raised within the Constitution. Because I think my comrade Gacheke has introduced a very good history of fighting for, which with what even my comrade Shiraz was involved in, which is the struggle against enforced neocolonialism by President Moi, where he tried to curtail, which is of course one of the ways that we can try to curtail freedom, which is to try to curtail the freedom of multi-party democracy. And in the process, a resistance sprouted because generally what he was creating is a monarchical of some sort of a monarchical system, or at least some sort of authoritarian system, but he cannot be challenged in terms of authority. But people essentially have come up and challenged that. They came up with a very progressive constitution, which is now within what we are governed under. But in the same constitution, it is very difficult to implement or to actualize what is the provisions of the constitution because of neoliberal politics. Neoliberalism dictates that people cannot have food because privatization dictates that food is also a commodity. Privatization dictates that housing is a commodity. Dictates that the basic needs that human needs to have dignity are commodified, and therefore the poorest of the people and even the working class of our people cannot afford basic dignity. And of course, it becomes very difficult to implement the constitution. But what we have is a site for struggle. We can easily organize the people of Madare, to find their self-determination in the sense that they have to deliberately organize and fight for land. They must address the land question. Right now we're doing a full campaign of ecological justice, because now people must come up and deliberately organize around issues of ecological injustices, because the poorest of people who are most they're the ones who are most, I don't know how to refer it, but the words are escaping me, but it's because they're the ones that are least, they're the ones that are least involved in damaging our environment, but they're the ones that suffer the brunt of a damaged ecological system. The dirtiest among the dirtiest rivers in the world are living within the masses of Madare people. Creating diseases, creating very undignified ways of living. I think my comrade Jeff has detailed that in the document, in that short paper that he wrote. And of course, those kind of conditions are what we deliberately organize around, because people must fight and deliberately fight for clean and safe water for drinking. People must deliberately ask themselves the question of why they're living in congested shelters, or there are people who are in our political ruling elite who are able to amass very big pieces of land within our country, but we leave other people congested in very small environments. And of course, this continuation and this this entrenched culture of neoliberalism is what we aim, even within the social justice centers, to deliberately organize against, because these social justice centers have sprouted in almost all informal settlements of Nairobi, addressing different questions. In some areas they are addressing issues of extrajudicial killings, which at this point, I think we need to create a whole different analysis of handling extrajudicial killings as crimes against humanity, because we have followed very different analyses that have been given in different parts of the world, where But these killings, of course, we can see that deliberate killings of the poor people. It's like a cleansing of poor people by the state, which we must continually fight. In Black, in Black America, they're fighting, against racism of the black child who is continually being killed by police. And on this other side, even the Black people are still killing the Black police, who are instruments of the state, continually kill our poor people in the name of handling crime, instead of us deliberately organizing for a different society, one that actually addresses questions of equality, one that actually addresses questions of love, where people can actually be able to love their own neighbors. And I mean, it's a continuous struggle that we must continually and deliberately organize, so that people can understand what self-determination means. Of course, even within the different movements and the different shapes of struggle that Gacheke is speaking about, for example, the organic intellectuals, it is deliberate that it has to be through political education that the masses of our people are going to be liberated. It has to be continuous, and it has to be directly entrenched with the people. And that is why even our centers are within the different informal settlements. And of course, it is even more motivating that there are more conscious people in the world that are continually also fighting the same struggles. And of course, having a platform like this one that we can openly debate, and discuss and exchange ideas of how we're going to move forward regarding our liberation struggles, it gives us more motivation and revolutionary zeal to keep going. So I think I will make a stop at that, comrade, and give my next comrade to keep going.
Thank you so much, Comrade Waringa. I think it's Comrade Waringa who will go on now, because Comrade Waringa, has presented, and our comrade now that will come on. Comrade, you gave us a very deep analysis of the extrajudicial killings, as well as the framework of which the communities operate in Nairobi, as well as Greater Kenya, but also the links to the internationalist struggles that you have foregrounded with the paper that our comrade Jeffrey, in his very intellectually astute document, drew linkages as well. There's an important point that we must consider going forward as well, and I'm sure we'll discuss it much more, and that is, how do we connect our struggles in an international way that makes sense to all of us, and to go together as a collective. Thank you, comrade. The floor is yours. You may go on.
Comrade, you're muted now.
Yeah, you need to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, comrades. So I was saying thank you to Comrade Gacheke and Comrade Wahoma for that great analysis that they have given. So my name is Minoo. I coordinate the Social Justice Center's Traveling Theatre and a member of the Organic Intellectuals Network and the Grassroots Liberation Movement. So at the Social Justice Center's Traveling Theatre, we have realized theatre as a very powerful tool to advocate for social change, and it has been used here in Kenya, particularly in our struggles. It has been used in the first liberation struggle, that was the Kamireto Theatre Group, which was using open air spaces to advocate for change. And we have also seen it in the second liberation, the 5 Cs. I'm sure Shiraz might know about that, when they were fighting for the constitution. The theater was used, and it was used to mobilize people and for people to be able to fight for themselves, for the to understand the benefits of the new constitution. So in this liberation, we are also using theater, the Social Justice Center's Traveling Theater, to advocate for different social injustices, issues that we are facing in different informal settlements. So we have members from different social justice centers. As you all know, the Social Justice Center is a movement. Our members are all human rights activists who understand well the context of human rights and the revolution and how capitalism has been functioning. So the theater has been used to go to streets. We mostly do street performances, which are invisible, mostly are invisible theater, where members of the community do not really know that you are acting, but they relate very well with what you are doing, and then we are able to to make our audience also actors in our place, so that they are able to come up with their own solutions, so that we're not the ones who are imposing the solutions to the communities, which has been seen working very powerfully. We also do not just theater, but we also do murals. When Jeff was here last time, we did different murals on Ochaland as an act of solidarity with our Kurdish comrades. And this has been, a powerful tool to amplify our struggles, especially when it comes to, as our comrade has said, extrajudicial killings, unemployment, drugs. We mostly use, street performances to show the effects of these things. And as my colleague Rahman was saying, we have a very powerful constitution that gives us a lot of rights. We have the right to housing, the right to employment, the right to healthcare, which we do not have. But then again, it is impossible to implement a constitution that then again promotes privatization. That promotes privatization of basic commodities. So it is we have realized that it is up to us to conscientize the masses on that, because the masses do not understand. And even when the masses are in a situation where they cannot do good analysis, this means it will be hard for them to struggle for self-determination, because we have seen things like drugs being used against the youth. And if you look at the struggle of drugs, you will see that it has been a protracted struggle. You will see, for example, when Jeff was here, there was a mass eviction that happened in Mukuru, evicting more than 70,000 families. What does that mean when you evict 70,000 families? And, there's a crisis of housing, and in our constitution, there's right to housing. So that means that it is not working, because, again, there's a privatization. So we go to these communities and conscientize them about these things. Because when we look at evictions, it goes back to housing. When it goes back to housing, it creates hopelessness among many young people. So these young people will go to drugs because there's no employment. Mukuru is very near to the industrial area, and there are no jobs in the industrial area. So a lot of young people are left hopeless, and they went to drugs. And when we go to drugs, of course, it will be hard for you to be able to do self-determination, because you are always maybe drinking or smoking some things and all that. And when we go to drugs, it is very easy for you to fall to police brutality, because when there's no employment and you need to buy these drugs, it means you go to crime, you fall to crime. But then again, you look at, where did this crisis start? It started from where you did these evictions. A lot of kids were never able to go back to school. Now they are falling into drugs. Now they are falling into crime. And then now you start struggling with extrajudicial killings. And your communities will not understand if you do not show them where historically this problem comes from. So yes, that is what we do at the Traveling Theatre. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Minoo. Indeed, you have championed towards the contradictions of capitalism and the challenges you have there in the locales that you have given us the examples from. Of course, you foregrounded theatre as resistance. And of course, the development of theatre in Africa, especially in countries in the north and the south here in South Africa, in Zegzimda, and the South African Resistance Theatre. Brecht Citizen Revolutionaries comes to mind as well. And those were characterized by high levels of activity, which you yourself have been doing, together with the joint contribution by our comrade Jeffrey and the different aspects of the Kurdish struggle intertwined into your localized struggles as well. And for that, I must thank you for your presentation as well, and your very astute insight into the challenges you have on the ground. Thank you for that. Is one of our other comrades who indicated they will not be having a formal presentation. Is he still, is the comrade with us? Comrade that should have been here as well. If the comrade is here and the comrade would like to share with us anything, please feel free. Comrade Wanjira.
Hello, Comrade Mohammed. It's Wanjira has asked for apologies to he was not able to what she was supposed to share is the same question of how the social justice movement has emerged and the role of the women and a feminist network that are shaping up the struggle within the social justice centers. And also she's been a key and a co-founder of Madare Social Justice Center. And also she has participated in articulating the question of the police brutality, criminalization of the poor. And she's also done some of the documentary in Al Jazeera. So some of those documentary we share. And she's also committed a cadre for the campaign for Free Orchland and also ecological justice movement. Yeah, that's the reason why Comrade Minoo appeared on her behalf. Yeah, but so what I just want to add is that our struggles for building up a grassroots movement, it is also because of the nature of the civil society in Kenya. And we have done a book called Silence in NGO Discourse, reading a book of Fisher Shivji about NGO discourse. This topic is there in the JF paper about the crisis of neoliberal in Africa. And this book speaks about in the last 30 years, the challenges we are facing with the organizing in our informal settlement because of NGOization of social movement. And I'm sure even in South Africa, we have this crisis. In the last 3 decades, it has been very difficult because NGOs have come to depoliticize the political, the grassroots movement. And that's why the grassroots liberation movement is very critical on how to organize from below and borrowing the Kurdish ideas and tactics on building a people's power from below. So I think that's part of our thing that we would want to share the book that we have done with the organic intellectual networks. And Comrade wrote the experiential knowledge on the challenges and the limitation of organizing in a space that's more dominated by NGO and a professionalization of the political activism. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Gacheke, I was just going to want to share a little bit about what we have done together already, and then maybe open up to a question. What do you think, for you guys to think about, what are the ways in which the Peace in Kurdistan Network can best help amplify your voices? So, historically, I met Gacheke in 2018 when he came to Cambridge, and he got to witness a little bit. There was a strike going on at the time. We met at a demonstration, in fact. But he invited me to come to Mathare, and I came to Mathare, and I was blown away by what I saw. And then I ended up writing a piece called "I Dreamt I Was a Rasta," and I came back to Kenya. And when I was in Kenya, we organized a variety of themes around this thing that I'd written to engage with people at the grassroots. And out of that came a series of seminars that we were doing. And we did one on Rasta resistance, about Rastafarianism and its relationship to resistance. We did one on women's liberation in the 21st century. We did one on social ecology as a revolutionary paradigm. And we did one on the legacy of Walter Rodney with the groundings with his brothers in particular. So we had a series of events that were in different places, different informal settlements, and we used my presence there to sort of organize and push to the next level a lot of the work that they've been doing, putting together an organic intellectuals network, putting together the organic movement, which is in tension with this NGOism, but it also has opened up amazingly in the last decade and a half. I mean, it's really sprung out. It's growing exponentially, and so how we as the Peace in Kurdistan movement, how we can help amplify and coordinate the work that you guys are doing on the grounds in the ghettos, and be thinking about the ways in which organizing with you is not just an act of charity, but we're really thinking about how we can organize internationalism in the 21st century. So that's the set of questions that I raised to you. Waringa, I think you might have something to say about it. Minoo, I think you might have something to say about it. And I'm sure Gacheke as well. And so I think it would be good to listen to what you guys think about what it is that you guys find attractive about the Peace in Kurdistan Network, and what kind of work do you think we can do similarly to this sort of what we did before with the seminars, maybe move towards a grassroots liberation album, a concert, and events that we could be that maybe we could help coordinate that. Anyhow, that's just I want the floor to be open to you guys.
Maybe I can go first, Mohammed. The thing is that for many years, the Kurdish movement has not linked up with the African struggle. We have a powerful history of Pan-African movements, and the African liberation, the struggle that went through. That South Africa, we had a very great struggle. The liberation of South Africa through the support of the Cuban forces, Kuchukwana Valley. Great struggle that has gone in Africa, and the thing that we are discussing and with Jeff is that the Kurdish movement has a narrow view of the struggles in Africa. I see that they have a history like the role of Frantz Fanon, Amilcar Cabral, and many thinkings that has shaped African struggles since the time of the liberation of independence movement. But this has not been reflected in the Kurdish literature on how the African struggle of self-determination. And I think this is what we are grappling. How do the Kurdish activists learn about our struggles in Africa? And there is a whole question on that. Maybe they have not realized that Africa and an African youth can play a major role in articulating the vision of self-determination of the Kurdish people. Because of the history of the colonization of Africa, the division of nationalities, colonial boundaries, the continued oppression and dictatorship or fascism of our political leadership that came after independence. It's the same shared story about the problem that's victimization of the Kurdish nationalities in Turkey by Erdogan regime. But very little has have been done, and we are happy with Jeff because he has written about this and why the Kurdish movement should focus more on linking up with the emerging youth and the radical social movement in Africa. So the thing is, we need to have more seminars, and that's the paper speak about. The struggle that is going on in Sudan is very critical. But I don't think our Kurdish movement or Kurdish campaigns have done any solidarity or linked up with the struggle that is going on in Sudan. Also in East Africa, there's a lot of struggle against police brutality, extrajudicial killing in South Africa, although there is a very strong key link in South Africa, and Mohammed, I really appreciate. But this sometimes it is anchored on a campaign of free Ochland. But I don't think whether they are very strong political program of deepening political mobilization and linking up with the Kurdish movement. And also it is the literature and writing around these issues that can help us forge the experience of our movement building in Africa and the Kurdish. I think this is a very fundamental, and I think the people of Jeff Speaker, how can we convene this kind of ideological seminars and a campaign, graffiti, as we have done here in Kenya, of framing Ochland and as a symbol of resistance. I don't know whether Kurdish movement also, and I see some of them in Europe, they know about the role of the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, Dedan Kimathi. How can we compare Dedan Kimathi? How can we contemporary articulate the question of Abdallah Ochland with Dedan Kimathi? And Jeff has written around that more, that unless the Kurdish people also try to learn from the martyrs of our African liberation struggle, it will be very difficult to connect with the African youth. Like now we are having a major crisis of IMF and World Bank pushing a lot of policies of privatization, policies of extreme taxation of the poor people, and also making closing the democratic space. The same thing that's happening in Turkey against the Kurdish movement. How is our struggles being connected? And I think that's with Estella here, and she being a long time ally and comrade of the Kurdish movement, and having interacted with the very many Kurdish revolutionary activists. How can we see this reflection and connection? There is a documentary that has been done by Kurdish TV that came here in Nairobi. It interviewed our former Chief Justice, who also issued a statement in solidarity with Kurdish and a demand for freedom of Ocalan. And also, it spoke about the international conspiracy against Abdullah Ocalan and how imperialism concentrated here in Nairobi has continued to undermine democratic forces in the world. I think this has not been well articulated by the Kurdish movement in different platforms to show Kenya as a space with a lot of resilience for resistance, and it can spark a powerful movement that can amplify the struggle of Kurdish people by showing how, by exposing the links of imperialism in here in Nairobi, by articulating how Ocalan was kidnapped and why, and how the Mau Mau struggle and the struggle of progressive forces in Kenya have been undermined by imperialism. I think this we have not seen in the Kurdish platforms or in the Kurdish articulation. And I think this is very important for us to move forward. We need to see the Kurdish movement also willing to learn from our struggles and appreciating that even as Africans, we have something to put in this space and shaping the struggle against imperialism and capitalism.
Thank you, Comrade Gacheke and Comrade Jeff, for preempting the issues of what our friends should request of us to assist, facilitate, and enable them going forward, and ourselves for the Kurdish struggle, in particular, how to articulate those struggles to reach a point where we can speak together. However, it's important to understand the contexts are varied, the contextual challenges in the different regions on the continent itself are not exactly unique in the sense that all are the same and the solution for one would be the solution for all. And Comrade Gacheke is clear on the point that we need much more to be done. And there is validity in what you say, my comrade. Of course, there is attempts made here since the early 90s in South Africa. We've had Nelson Mandela, who firmly stood behind the Kurdish struggle, and in particular for the support of the Kurdish people. At a deeper political level, there is the blowback from capital, as well as those who have their interests, not only Turkey, but their allies as well, domestically and outside of the continent as well. Like we experienced during our struggles against apartheid. There were those who had support of pariah states during apartheid and those who had support of the US establishment itself until 1986. We see much of that now in the Kurdish struggle. But more importantly, in terms of international solidarity, you are correct when you say that there needs to be much more done. On the issue of Sudan, PIK itself, or Peace in Kurdistan, had as a webinar towards the latter half of last year as well, where our comrades from Sudan were featured as well. And of course, much more needs to be done across the continent. But you mentioned our comrade Shiraz Durrani. It would be, I think, important, Comrade Gacheke, if our comrade Shiraz, who is here with us, would like to share a few words as well on how to take this going forward based on the intellectual as well as the theoretical understanding, but bringing praxis and the way forward with that. Comrade Shiraz Durrani, if we may, please, the floor is yours, comrade.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, it's been a very interesting discussion. I am a little handicapped because I'm not in Kenya, so it's difficult for me to feel the reality of it. Dr. Gacheke talked about the taxes going up and the situation of the working people and so on. But maybe I can make a few comments in general, and possibly some things that I'm involved in might also be appropriate, I think. I think the important issue about the Kenyan struggle and the struggles around the world is that we are each country or each region looks at operating everywhere. If you think about the real issue in Kenya is the policies planted or imposed by IMF, World Bank, and WTO. And if there are tax increases, if all the public services are being privatized, it's not, we tend to sort of personalize it with one person or one political party. But really, you see what happened in Britain, where there was an attempt to bring some kind of change from the status quo. And then the establishment reacted so viciously that even today the Labour Party has been taken over by the same forces. No, so if our enemy in Kenya is IMF, it is the case in the whole of Africa, and perhaps the whole of the world, where the working people are suffering. So it is important for us to work together. And I think this is where the internationalism comes in it, that we often forget in trying to survive economically and to know about the politics at a local level, that there is an international dimension and we need to work with others. So in that sense, that is important to the Pan-Africanist and working with the working class and people who are struggling also, like Palestine, for instance. So that's just one point. Secondly, I think we are sitting here and talking, but really our key thing is to work with our workers and peasants. It's very easy for intellectuals to sit in this kind of nice forums and talk about revolution. What exactly needs to be done in terms of connecting with the struggle of the working class and the peasantry is something that is, I think, often missing in many of our struggles. And I'll talk of this other. I've written 3 little books, one on trade unionism, one on Maubau, and one on people's struggles. The consciousness of people, the class consciousness, the struggle of classes is what needs to be brought forward. We don't hear much about class consciousness, whereas the whole issue facing Kenya and Africa and the working people around the world is the imposition of capitalism and our struggle for liberation, which is our struggle for socialism. But you don't hear much about socialism. You don't hear much about capitalism, because capitalism is everywhere. It is not in people's consciousness. The cause of all our problems is capitalism, and the solution is socialism. And while before independence in Kenya, I think, or even in Africa, with Nkrumah and people around him, there was a feeling, there was an awareness that what we needed was socialism. Today, very few organizations talk of socialism. So that is part of the first step we need to take. But talking about organizations from the past, we don't even have. MoMA was an organization in Kenya. Where is its equivalent today in Kenya or in Africa? Where is the organization that will think about the change? You cannot have or hope for a proper organization without an organization which is socialist, which is anti-imperialist. But if there is no organization, who or what is going to lead that struggle? So learning from each other is to learn about organization. I think ANC has become like what Conway became after independence. It was bought over, it was turned into its opposite. So what we call it is Kano B. And ANC, it's the same story in South Africa. In fact, people from South Africa were brought to Kenya to see that independence means nothing after Kenya became independent. everything became the same. The settlers were there, their land was taken away, it was never returned. So they gave confidence to in South Africa that, it's fine, not fight independence, give them independence, so long as you control the economy, so long as you control the land. And that is the problem in Africa. Zimbabwe is doing this, facing the same problem. So our discussion should focus more on how we connect with the working class, how we set about organization on Kenyan but Pan-African level, and then it can link up with issues or struggling people outside. And we have a lot to learn from each other. Then just to sort of kind of an important issue around in Kenya as well as the countries is Mao was influenced in its ideology and its organization by the trade union movement. I don't know how many people in Kenya, when I've heard the name of Makan Singh, Bidat Kakia, Fred Kubai, these were the characters who Yogama Pinto, who were active trade unionists with clear ideology, which informed the ideology of Mao. And because of their success, colonialism, the imperialists made sure that they brought in laws and organizations, like individuals like Tomboya, who killed the old trade union movement, which was political as well as fighting for workers' rights. And they brought in Kotu and all sorts of weird things. And so the consciousness of its working class is nowhere there. So some of the things that some of us are trying to do, I'll mention a few things. One is the struggle at the information level. Our brains have been stolen. Our content of resistance, of imperialism, socialism. So one of the things we are trying to do is, first of all, publish our own material, which nobody else wants to touch. No imperialist organization will publish progressive, class-conscious material. So we set up Vita Books is a very, very small example of what can be done. At the same time, linked with it is Okombozi Library. Information publishing is okay, but you need a movement, not a bourgeois library movement, but a liberation setup where there can be discussion groups, where there can be actions planned around issues that matter of the day. So Okombozi Library fills that role. So the two together work with community groups, with social justice centers, and then other community groups from a working class perspective. The second or other thing we are doing is, well, there's, as far as I know, there is no socialist organization in Kenya. But one missing link is the trade union movement, the militant trade union movement. So what we are doing, the Okombozi Library, Vita Books, we are working with the Marx Memorial Library. As we are developing a course on trade unionism. But interestingly enough, Marx Memorial Library already had a course in trade unionism, power, and something else. What we are doing is we're developing a new curriculum, working with them and working with the Okombozi Library to put a Kenyan context and possibly an African context in the training program. So we'll be working on it, and very soon, in the very near future, we'll be running the first course on trade unions with Kenyan presenters, with Kenyan content, things from Kenyan history and Kenyan present. The idea is to attract activists and trade unionists into this course and so that we start some kind of a movement of activists working in the political field, in the trade union movement, in the community setup, so that we at least start creating a consciousness and an awareness of classes, class struggle, imperialism, and anti-imperialism. So those are some of the things that we are working on. In the question was raised, how we can work together or how we can support each other. I think these are some of the things already taking place in Kenya, besides what is the community groups and the social justice centers are doing. So maybe there is a need for some kind of working together around some of these ideas. That's all I think.
Thank you very much, Comrade Shirazuddin, for sharing your views and input. Of course, you emphasize the importance of working with grassroots, the working class, which is well received and understood by all of us here, Comrades Gacheke, Jeffrey, Estella, all of us in Peace in Kurdistan understand well, including Comrade Sydney, who was very important in the formation of the UDF in South Africa. And South Africa stands at a precipice where we've understood that, to put it in Ochalanian terms, the nation state has failed its people because of the co-opting that has been so well articulated by comrades here in South Africa and elsewhere. And of course, the international organizations such as the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the structural adjustment policies that have ravaged the African continent and other states as well throughout the globe. The issue of leadership, who leads this kind of solidarity campaigns? How will it be coordinated? Where must it be? What resources do we have? How do we understand that? The example of reading groups and so on, which are well known in struggle movements. But today we understand that lengthy pieces of publications no more get the deserved attention that they should. Instead, people want short, quick fixes to move on. When you look at the trade union movements, and I will share a little example, we met with our friends who come from the British trade unions a few days ago, and they shared similar struggles that they are having domestically as well. Their comrades in the struggle movements too don't want to be labored with much, except that if it's a good cause, let's stand with it. But they are so enwrapped with their local struggles that the time for international solidarity has been put on the back burner. And that was resonated here as well with us in COSATU, a giant of a trade union amalgamation itself has been co-opted. And the disgraceful way in which it has responded from Marikana up until now, when we've had individuals who were on our Peace in Kurdistan program, the Amadiba Crisis Action Committee, as well as comrades from the Abashali Bosonjolo, who've been targeted by instruments of the state itself. So the attempts that are being made, Comrade Shirazuddin, as you brought to us, are very important in building the way forward. And your emphasis on knowledge and education and the conscientization that must drive that, and the absence of socialism, or as some here would say, the ideas of democratic confederalism, as a way in which the synthesis of the failures of those theoretical frameworks that held us in good stead in decades gone by must now be renewed and re-looked at afresh. Before we continue further on those important points, there is Comrade Wanjira, who was here with us as well. Comrade Gacheke, does our Comrade Wanjira want to perhaps speak of the resistance with law as a weapon? It's been very successfully used here in South Africa by Abashali Bosonjolo, and I am sure with your linkages with them, you can share with us here on this platform, maybe Comrade Wanjira, who spoke so and articulated on the legal battles that they've been successful with as an instrument within the configuration of capitalist structures. Comrade Waringa, if it's possible to share with us a few ideas you have on the questions first initiated by Comrade Jeffrey. Thank you, Comrade Waringa.
Yes, thank you very much. And of course, we borrow very much from that movement and Africa as regards the land question, with housing question of which we must and very much like to borrow from. Within the Legal Empowerment Network at Madare, it is based within the people of Madare. It is based within the informal settlement of Madare. which makes it very prime, to organizing within a people most deprived of their social justice and human rights, to organize them around the issues of social justice. Because again, one of the articles of our constitution which provides a very huge site of struggle is an article, double Article 43, which is the article on social justice, which provides and details social justice and, within the Bill of Rights. And of course, we can take one of those and organize the people around them. Because, for example, we take the land question, which is, let's say, for example, the water question, because most of the people in Madare lack clean and safe water for drinking. So within that question of, that the provision of within the constitution that there should be provision of water for the people, the provision of water is a social justice right within the constitution. But then the people of Madare are deprived of that particular right of, of clean, safe, drinking water and the dignity of, something as basic as toilets, of hygiene and nutrition. Within that article, we use other organizations, for example, NGOs that exist. There are some progressive NGOs when we speak about the question of, of neoliberalism within the NGO discourse. But there are also other progressive NGOs that we partner with, which, which can take up the, the task of filing these cases in court. And, these people are mobilized around those issues of, clean and safe water. And then when it comes to the question, for example, of extrajudicial killings, the victims or the survivors, so to speak, of extrajudicial killings have organized themselves through, through using the law. For example, the formation of the women and survivors of victims. Women survivors of victims of extrajudicial killings have formed themselves as an organization based on the fact that most of them are brought together by a class action suit, through public interest litigation cases that come together, and these people are brought together to file their litigation to demand, for example, a commission of inquiry within those extrajudicial killings. So now the same way, we take up these cases of that can organize people around these particular issues. Now those women formed themselves because a public interest litigation case was formed around the issues of extrajudicial killings. When it comes to the campaign, for example, of clean and safe water, those are also organized within that question. Now we're taking up a whole campaign, as I had said earlier, of ecological justice, where now these spaces as well formed through this campaign, give life, because these articles of the Constitution can only get life if they are mobilized within the people. Because the most important thing is for us to have community agency. Because community agency is the only thing that can give the people power to understand that self-determination is within their reach. It takes them organizing, and then we link them with, student activists, with, within lawyers, within the struggle. Other organizations also involved in this particular struggle to amplify these voices and to amplify this conversation. Stand them from very simple conversations that are very easily normalized within our communities to now national conversations that need to be addressed. Because now the president is speaking about extrajudicial killings as his campaign holds. That is, of course, a continuous thing that has come within, within the process of this struggle. We see them now speaking about the land question. These were once a time normalized conversations, like lack of housing was a normalized conversation. Extrajudicial killings was a normalized conversation. But through public interest litigation cases, organizing the community within these public interest litigation cases, they become national conversations. When they become things that now, even the government through the executive and the parliament, which is most probably unfunctional, but the community can have agency to have what I spoke earlier with what Jeff calls, revolution in consciousness. A different method of, conscientizing the masses. Yeah. That again, it's always political education, which is most important.
One thing I was going to mention, which we were engaged in already, and I think there's a lot of space for it moving forward, is precisely organizing people around arts and culture. So this is why some of the stuff that Minoo was talking about the theater movement, but also the Rastafarian movement is very interested in pushing forward a grassroots liberation concerts around the informal settlements throughout all of Africa, but beginning in Kenya. And I think that kind of space, we can think about events that help mobilize. They become moments that help people mobilize towards it, and then it leaves an infrastructure. And so I think with respect to some of we bring people in not by promising them a reading group since they don't read, but maybe we bring them in with some conscious reggae music that that gets it into their head that maybe it's okay, maybe it's a good thing to read. And so it's part of a process, but using the arts and culture to build infrastructure for grassroots liberation, understood as self-determination and community empowerment. That's the only way that the social justice center movement can actually impregnate, so to speak, the forces that are latent and revolutionary at the grassroots.
Mohammed, can I make a comment on the question you asked about the
Please go ahead. Yes, please go ahead.
It's a very fundamental question about using a liberal democratic constitution in helping to articulate the struggle of the people, like the shack dwellers are doing in South Africa, and the struggle that you have used the powerful framework of the constitution to articulate those issues. And I think even us is what we are trying. And even the formation of Social Justice Center, as Comrade Waringa has spoken about, is borrowed from our constitution, which has values of human rights, social justice, an element of people's democracy, self-determination. And that's what we are borrowing on and trying to create an environment that can create seeds of building a powerful working class movement from below. And that's why we have a democratic space that we can able to invite comrades like Jeff to come and convene with us as ideological seminars on the struggle of the Kurdish people. The same space that has allowed ours and Comrade Shiraz to establish Ukombozi Library and many other platforms that we are using. But I agree, comrade, with the very strong with the Comrade Shiraz are saying that the question is what's to be done. One, we are agreeing that we are following tactics and strategy as the Kurdish democratic movement has done. But the challenge we have, and in our younger generation, is to build an organization. It has been a very major struggle. At the moment, it's not like South Africa where we have a different platform, although Mohammed will say they have been compromised and corrupted by capitalism culture. We don't have a strong trade union movement. And in fact, I can't think of any trade union that is strong in Kenya. Even those who are based in the universities, they still articulate the same issues of neoliberalism, self-interest. Even the trade union, they don't link with other trade unions. The things that we need to learn from South Africa and from your side is how the informal workers, because of the big problem of the privatization, a lot of people have been laid off, and a lot of work that is happening now, it is a casual labor, like women, a lot of work that is being done by women, and they are not in an employed contract, and a huge hawking problem. Like yesterday, we lost almost 51 people who are hawkers, selling merchandise along the road, and the trailer came and it lost speed and crashed all of them. Just those are martyrs of the working class, or who are being crushed by an economic system and a recklessness of our roads and economy that has no spaces for this kind of work, petty traders, casual laborers. So I think the thing that you can learn from South Africa, and I think you have started very well, of how you unify this in casual workers. And I think the idea of democratic confederacy is very powerful by building powers from below, as creating assemblies. We tried here in Nairobi with the People's Parliament, and also it is linked with the social justice movement. And I think the idea of, and that is where the legal empowerment network coming, that is led by Waringa, that we can take a class suitcase of right to water, take it to our court. Sometimes they make a progressive pronouncement. Then we use those progressive pronouncements to organize our movement. But the key question remaining with what Shiraz said after that, where is a institutional political institution where we can use it to contest for political power. I think that Jeff is contested, because I know he's writing, and and you have said it, Mohammed, about those framework of the vanguard party and the idea of having a political party as a vehicle to capture political power. I know Jeff and many comrades are contesting that question, and you have also said it. How do you reframe those theory and theoretical framework that we use to go over class analysis and avant-garde party? And there's a book by that's Estella, and it's named after the book for Sarah. The book, don't forget the name of the book that was written by that martyr of Kurdish movement. It's talk about my whole life in the struggle, and they speak very strongly about the history of the PKK and how it had a limitation in organizing. And the essence of now, Öcalan has written more about Democratic Confederalism. I think this is where we can say, because we can't, the trade union movement, and Shiraz has spoken very well, the trade union movement of 1970s, 80s, 90s, is it the same trade unions that we are speaking about? Is it how we will organize the working class? What will happen? The ecological crisis. How will be the working class being organized? And I think that's where we are, and we need a lot of research, a lot of learning together on how to organize. Millions of young people in Africa who have no job. How do you organize them?
Thank you, my comrade Gacheke. You've summed up what's been said this afternoon very eloquently and very well. And it is clear from what you've said that we need to work closer together down in the south, as well as you there in Kenya, as well as Peace in Kurdistan coordinating and assisting. And I think one way in which we can go forward, which we concluded at a previous Peace in Kurdistan seminar with friends from the grassroots organizations down here in the south, was that we must have a meeting or a convergence that you suggested earlier, perhaps on a platform like this going ahead, where their representatives can engage with you directly as well in a forum, merely just hosted by us, Jeff and myself. Comrade Estella can merely moderate the session and so on, and then we can converge with that as well. However, that is one possibility. I see Comrade Estella has indicated to say something. Comrade Estella, please go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wanted to go into the question of what Comrade Gacheke has raised in terms of, the wider issue of Kenya, trade union movement, the other movements, the building of a real movement between the different sections of society.
Yeah.
Now, the focus of this has to be, what is the issue really? You cannot actually, if you're talking about Roger and the Kurds, it is not a question of copying, the actual project. It is the question of understanding how the movement in Kenya, historically, politically, socially, culturally developed, and to understand it from the context of the present international crisis. None of you in this discussion have yet mentioned in which context we are actually moving today internationally. Okay? What faces the global struggles? What faces the global movements? What faces the people from workers to grassroots organizations, to all sections of society? We are not in the normal situation 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Okay?
But my sense with respect, one of the ways in which a platform like Peace in Kurdistan can be really useful to people, that's what we really need to be an open invitation, like tell us what to do. We want to figure out a way to coordinate.
But trying to say is, the question is how we bring this discussion, of course, into, for example, in the work that we do on the ground in the UK or internationally. But
maybe people who are in the internationalists, they should think about maybe taking a trip to Kenya, meeting up with the comrades in Kenya, and then maybe when they're down in Kenya, maybe some of them could go on to South Africa and create real links from these virtual links.
Yes, that is true, but we have to find a way to, first of all, clarify who we are actually contacting.
Yeah.
We want to clarify the political questions first. That's why we are calling these things.
Yes.
We do have already projects, okay? Your arts project is a very good one, okay? And of course, through the arts itself, there's many different links that can be shaped that go beyond just individual movements.
And can I say something just related to that? Is on the organizational question? I definitely agree we need organization, but I don't agree that we need an organization. I believe we need many organizations to be learning how to work together. Because I know, for example, with the Rastafarian movement, you're not going to get any Rastafarians who are going to be able to join the Communist Party of Kenya, but they will organize an event together.
Yeah.
That's
precisely what, in a way, they have to work out in Kenya.
Exactly. That's what needs to be worked out. And maybe we can play a role helping them work that out.
Yeah. We can play a role by actually using also the resources, for example, the funds that recently, that, for example, in Cambridge, that there is a project where, somebody like Gacheke or our friend Minoo or Waringa could be invited.
Yes.
And be presented on platforms up and down the country.
Yes.
Okay? So that would be a way to break it open.
Getting people to do delegations, organizing, spreading the news and getting people to organize delegations, internationalist brigades going down, spending 2-3 weeks learning about the movement, and then being able to implement.
You are not still not into account the limitations that we have.
Period.
So the crisis itself, which is my point.
It's true.
I mean, many organizations have lost their funding.
Yes.
The Öcalan campaign in the UK lost its funding.
Yes.
Because the trade unions suddenly had their own problems to face.
Of course.
Okay. So,
but on the other hand, the Zoom this kind of virtual meeting is a lot more thinkable for people. People can understand it a lot more than they did before. And so we have to also, despite the terror of the conjuncture we're in, we have to be able to think about what are ways that we can use the opportunities that present themselves now to organize internationally.
Yeah, of course. But anyway, we are trying to do that, David.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Otherwise, I wouldn't push this bloody thing. Okay?
Of course.
And not easy to organize.
No.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay?
Yeah.
We have what? We have 12 people in it. Okay?
Yes.
To about 120.
Yeah.
And I can tell you one thing is that, of course, if you have an issue that is just on ecology, we suddenly get on the issues of responding to the recorded message.
Yeah.
The people. Okay?
Yeah.
The recorded message. So in a way, it's a small indication that maybe good recording. Yeah.
But I think part of the issue is that we think about raising consciousness, but it would be good if we could get some of our Kurdish friends to come to these things.
Yes.
We're organizing as peace in Kurdistan, and there's no Kurdish person here.
Okay, can I give the answer?
Yeah.
Okay, the Kurdish people are in the most atrocious war.
Yeah.
Facing not just the Turkish state, but the Middle Eastern state and the international state.
Yes, that's true.
From the west to the east, to the south. Okay? So please don't underestimate the
urgency of their situation.
They're struggling in the Middle East.
Yeah.
People are killed every day. We have hundreds of thousands of people in prison.
Yes.
Okay? Ocalan, etc., etc. Yet the inspiration comes from there. Still, some of the people, for example, I want to raise the issue of the network for alternative quests.
Yes.
We tried to organize a conference in Hamburg. Even that they tried to stop.
They tried to stop it, yeah.
I have a friend, I think, who joined us here. Okay? So maybe Sid could say something. I don't know.
Yeah, Sid.
Okay? Now, in terms of joining, all the women who are good are somehow engaged in that struggle over in Rojava. And the women who can't in Europe, okay, they are busy with organizing this thing.
Yeah.
There's only a few on top of it in the diaspora that we have in Europe who speak English. Okay?
Yeah.
So I want to raise confidently these problems because peace in Kurdistan is part of the freedom movement.
Yes.
It has been since 1986.
Of course.
All right?
Of course.
Years of my work with the Kurds in international movement.
Yes.
International movement.
Yes. And it seems to go back to your point, I mean, given the urgency of the situation right now is the time to really be thinking about what is our plan of action, because it's not like things are going to get any easier.
Yeah, of course. But I'm saying there are major problems involved. Even as a focus group, like Peace in Kurdistan, we have problems even having those people that we had in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real challenge, and I'm not saying one cannot resolve it. But when, for example, our friend Gacheke raised the issue, where's our Kurdish friends in all that? I have to say, they're trying very hard to do their best what they can, okay? But they are limited in the resources at this present stage, okay?
Yeah.
In order to support the struggle in Kenya. I mean,
but I think that has to do with the crisis of the imagination. People have a hard time. We can say that there's revolutionary conditions, but people have a hard time even beginning to imagine a revolutionary situation at the level of the world.
True, but the same, not just facing the Kurds, but facing the English and the international.
Yes.
Okay?
Exactly.
I mean, anyway, but the importance is that we find ways and means to get this material that we have on this webinar out to the people here in the UK and anywhere where we can. Okay? So, and that is where Marco comes in and the recording of the issue, but not just the recording, but the organization through grassroots, organized wherever, and if it means going to the people who are now on strike, if it is the nurse or if it is the railway workers or whoever it is here on strike, because they will understand the problem. It is not that difficult, okay? But we need to have people to actually do this, to go there, to give out the booklets, the publications that we have. We have various materials that we can easily,
mobilize.
Okay? And we are bringing out a new booklet of Gacheke, okay? On these issues of self-determination. Yeah.
Yeah, Comrade Marco, you can continue recording. When you do your edits, then you can take out some of the things that don't need, but you need to capture the debates and points that have been forwarded.
Yeah. Edit a bit.
Maybe edit a bit, but it's a necessary conversation.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So I hope I stop here. But what I'm saying is really we have to get the material out and we have to use all these forms. If it's
Yeah.
of,
But,
if it is in
but
speech, one form of movement, one form of
Yeah.
inviting people to come to London.
But I want to push a little bit more on just what it is that we can do and what it is that we can think about as Peace in Kurdistan operating, because it doesn't seem to me to be a coincidence that my role in a lot of what's happened in the last couple of years is people are doing all kinds of stuff on the ground, and then my appearance on the scene creates certain opportunities that multiple different people can come and do something together around the fact that this Cambridge professor is here doing whatever grassroots tour. Then people get excited about it. It becomes a kind of an event that can be used to bring people together, to build towards an event organizational capacity, and also overcome inabilities to work together it's very difficult for them to do. So I think that we need to think creatively about what, as an internationalist group, how we can create opportunities for the movement for the movement of movements to work together on things and move forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have already mentioned a number of things.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
people,
But maybe Gacheke or Waringa or Minoo have something to say with respect to that.
Comrade Gacheke, are you still with us? Comrade Minoo?
Yes, thank Mohammed. The thing is, it's possible to see how we convene some of these meetings and materials. We have a lot of materials shared by Jeff from that book of Abdallah Öcalan, the Freedom of Mind, and there's another book. Some of the books with materials we have received from the Kurdish movement. But what we are saying is that, and since Comrade Joe has spoken about the Kurdish Youth Move delegation that visited South Africa, and also our Kurdish movement members who visited here in Nairobi, and we also working in alternative democratic modernity network. We're also involved in them. Yeah, but I think there is a criticism that we need to bring out, that we need not an level of the patronizing of the, sometimes when you meet the Kurdish leadership and movement, that sometimes you feel like they need to accept that they can learn also from us. And I think also I did participate in the long march for freedom with the Kurdish movement in Blafeld and Germany. There's a video on that. Yeah, but it is still what, and I don't want to repeat myself too much, Mohammed. I think what we are saying is it possible we continue convening this and a Kurdish movement try to have an extensive focus in linking up with the working class youth struggling in Africa, and it will give the Kurdish struggle a different perspective and character, and it will be a very powerful link, and I think that has not shaped up.
Well, I think that a first step in that link is for you with Mahmoud to forge stronger links now, because now so we could be thinking about, for example, organizing delegations that can go and sort of be on in situ in the different places. But yes, I think that that for many reasons, South Africa has long links to the Kurdish movement, and it's the door within which the Kurdish movement can enter into the kind of Pan-African consciousness. But I think that you guys have to help them see what they cannot see.
I'm very happy with it, and I'm sure my comrades Waringa and Minoo want to make a contribution. But I'm very happy because this is the first time we are meeting with Mahmoud, and it's very powerful division. The other we are meeting Mahmoud, we are meeting with petty bourgeois lawyers who say they were leading the campaign of Abdallah Öcalan. They come here. Then they tell us to meet them in a 5-star hotel in airport there. I was wondering that, are they serious?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Comrade Gacheke. And of course, it's a necessary evil, these meeting places that take place with lawyers in hotels and so on. It's the norm now. Former Communist Party members would meet in no other places than those bourgeois places now. Unfortunately, Comrade Sydney will tell you much more about that too if he would like to share with us. However, the focus of this symposium was primarily the struggles for self-determination in the 21st century, perspectives from Africa. And the focus was on Kenya. So thank you, Comrade Gacheke, for bringing that strongly across. And yes, Comrade Jeffrey, we can work much more together, but with our friends here as well from Abastali Bosonjolo, Amadiba Action Crisis, as well as the Landless People Movement across the country. And those networks with us are quite good. They were with us also at our last conference for Freedom for Ochaland as well. And they really are a galvanizing force and a catalyst and a means to strengthen your struggles there. And of course, the trade union comrades who as individuals within the trade union movement support us very strongly on the Kurdish issues as well and understand the international challenges that Comrade Estella has rightfully put onto the forum here, where we need to understand those issues well. We must clarify our positions as well, because that is what we are all facing and working against. But Comrades Minoo and Comrade Wanjira, if you have anything to share as well. In closing, we must be mindful of the time. We've just clipped over an hour and 10 minutes. Comrade Shiraz Durrani has tendered an apology in the chat. He had to leave, and I thanked him for his contribution, especially for pointing out Ujamaa and African socialism as well. But Comrades Minoo, please go ahead.
Thank you, comrades, for this powerful contributions. I want to agree on Gacheke's position and also on Jeff's position on arts and culture. So on that regard, I want to say that I think it's high time that we start having conversations on how we can advance our support towards using art as a form of liberation, as a tool towards our liberation struggle, because we have seen it work here in Kenya, and Jeff has also seen the impact of the murals that we have been doing here in Kenya. So I think it's high time we continue having these conversations, and as we continue having these meetings, to make it a topic of discussion in our conversations, because the theater especially, it goes where the masses are. It doesn't call for these dialogues where, there has been too much NGO and all that. However, they work sometimes, but our theater is very powerful because it goes where the people are, and it makes people own their problems so that they are able to fight for themselves. Yeah, that's I think that's what I can add.
Thank you very much, Comrade Minoo. Comrade Manjira.
Yes, okay, comrade. I think I would only, on that regard of the criticism, I would agree with it and say, but also appreciate that, when our comrades came, for their trips in Kenya, they brought so many books which were distributed around the different parts of the different social justice centers within Nairobi. And of course, their interactions was a good exchange within, the Kurdish struggles and the Kenyan struggles. But I think with Gacheke's criticism is that, what was to be done moving forward was not actualized because there is some sort of, let me not call it power struggle, but some relation of some sort that would be best described as a power struggle. But of course, I agree because, being that the topic today was struggles for self-determination, all the conversation link towards it, because if we develop what is to be done, then it would be easy to take it up. Yes, correct.
Thank you, Comrade Waringa Wahome. Thank you for your input this afternoon as well. Comrades, we've eclipsed much of our time allocated, and we should stick to that time frames as well. In closing, if there's any comrade, whether it's Comrade Marco again, Comrade Joe, Comrade Nick, Comrade Sydney, Connor, anybody who would like to give closing remarks, please feel free and go ahead. I'll just go silent for a while, and feel free, unmute yourself, and please take a minute or two and share closing remarks as well.
I guess I could say something at the outset. Just I'm very happy that this has come to to fruition. And I do believe that this is a work in progress, but I begin to see progress. Things that it's been a few years that were ideas in the making that now have a kind of infrastructure that is a kind of organic infrastructure. And I think that the way in which Peace in Kurdistan has been working with our friends in Kenya is something that we're getting better at it, I think. And we have to continue with more events like this to continue and forging the organic links to these sort of virtual links, turn them into organic links, and then use the virtual to push forward the organic links more, and sort of play with this idea between the virtual possibilities and the organic realities. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, Comrade Connor.
Hi, thank you, Mahmoud, and thank you to everyone here. It's been, I think, a really great and a lot of really important points of conversation. And these are discussions I know that have been ongoing now for some time, especially with Jeff coming to Nairobi and building the connections over the past years. So for me, I would say that I feel very grateful to be able to be part of these places and spaces where these conversations are happening, even though this is a virtual space, but something that one of the great benefits of these technologies that can happen. We can do these things. One thing I wanted to say, just on the theme of internationalism, and to echo a lot of what has been said, I think what's really important is from my perspective, in an era of a globalized world system, the fates of people, and now it's no longer just a human issue, but the fate of the biosphere, the ecosphere, everything, the world has never been more entangled together, right? In a global economy, a global, et cetera, global state system. And so as a matter of forces of conditions, the question of internationalism or transnationalism or collectivism is imposed upon us just by the conditions, with growing and increasing urgency. And the problem is too, and it's really the problem of the age-old divide and conquer issue, is that people are, through different forces and circumstances in their different divisions, borders, conditions, etc. And I think as Comrade Shiraz was saying really, really well, there is, though, a singular world structure, world system. There is a common enemy. And they're very well organized. They're very centralized. And they're very, unified in themselves. Or they struggle very hard to be. And they're very concerned about divisions inside of themselves. And that's the whole point of divide and conquer. That's how it works, is that you divide the other and you unify yourself to divide it. And so in that context of the situation we find ourselves, the urgency of needing to find ways to come together, and with the name of the game, the name of the issue having to be self-determination, the fate, the destiny of us as a species, as a humanity, as a world. And I think that's, on this point that Jeff was saying, that you, the friends in Nairobi, have to find a way to help the Kurdish friends see the issue, right? I think that's such an important line of that, is that, well, who are the Kurds fighting? NATO? It's the same, as you were talking about, as Comrade Shiraz was talking about, I believe the IMF, right? The IMF leaves, that's a great global rallying point. Everyone can, the masses of the 85%, 90% of humanity can understand the struggle with the IMF. And so I think it's so important to focus. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'll cut it short. It's so important to focus on these things that bring us together. And as we've been saying, these practical issues, and of how we can use in this situation we find ourselves, and use the technologies and different experiences and sharing and building abilities to go and travel and meet, how we can use that to find ways to really try to bring and weave ourselves together as a movement of movements, right? The diversity is the strength. That's the great thing about the difference.
Yeah. Can I say something just related to that?
That was all. So thank you everyone. Thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be part of it.
I think one of the things Peace in Kurdistan can do is sort of articulate for internationalist people that there's other ways to organize in politics rather than trying to, rally around Jeremy Corbyn or Bernie Sanders. There's other things that we could be doing as people with internationalist ideals. So we need to be reaching out to comrades like Gacheke Gachihi and say, how can we be of service? And I'm sure they have lots of ideas for us. So yeah. Anyhow, I want to come to South Africa, Mahmoud.
Comrade Jeffrey, it will be an absolute pleasure to have you here with us. Please let us know when we're en route.
We'll figure it out. Make it happen.
It's important that you come here. Yes, with Comrade Gacheke as well, and comrades
Waringa
and yes. It's important because you've done a lot of work together with our former chair, the late Judge Samusa.
Yes.
You dedicated a chapter in your book also on our late judge as well. And you're correct when you say in your paper that foregrounded this particular seminar that Kenya is the symbol, because that is where the international conspiracy against the Kurdish leader and the Kurdish movement was in its most brutal form, where the capture, incarceration, and consequence thereof of him languishing on the island of Imrali for almost a quarter of a century now is Kenya. Yeah. And therefore, in your paper, you gave the conclusion there, which is very important, and I'd like to paraphrase it in my own words, if I may. The focus on Africa in general, but on Kenya in particular, is manifest and manifold. That is what you wrote in that paper. We are committed to telling the meta-narrative, both from the beginning and from below, which is from the ground in Kenya and Africa, and the meta-narrative that Estella very, very strongly put forward. And we connect with the local activists at grassroots. That includes us here as well. And among the Lampoon, to help them articulate those demands and to facilitate and amplify their voices. You put that very correctly. And the struggles and theirs are abundant around the globe. Those struggles are. And my comrade Gacheke, the Kurdish people are fighting not only NATO's second most powerful Turkey, they're fighting the US, France, and Britain, including Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and Syria. They're fighting all of those states as well. And they're fighting those in our own countries who are complicit with those regional imperial governments, as well as the international ones as well, including the arms industry and so on. There is so much, So the key to connecting the struggles, as you say, is to bring us together for what must be done. And yes, Comrade Sydney has given us a whole lot of resources available from down here in the south, ILRIX, AIDC, and so on. Those resource-based organizations have been doing a lot of work for a long time. And a lot of their literature and work covers things that we know about as well. Comrade Jeff is very articulate in it, whether it's from Walter Rodney to Frans Fanon, including the labor movement and struggles in South Africa and the working class here, and their forms of resistance and how it's endured over time, and the new configured international struggles we faced with here in South Africa as well, from load shedding to Shell to British Petroleum, the mining industrial complex, as late Prof. Terblanche Sampi referred to. Those are struggles we have. So the first step, as you say, Comrade Jeff, is to forge the organic links amongst the activists for a long time. So as we converge our trajectories in this conjecture we find ourselves, the new must be born. And in the words of Gramsci, 100 years on the cusp of the Lausanne Treaty 2023 that's taking place in July, there's a rallying call by our friends from the trade unions. So, Comrades Gacheke, all your grassroots organizations should pen a letter of support for that meeting to take place in July. I'll share with you of that, and I'm sure Comrade Estella in her many communications will share that as well. And that is also a step for international solidarity. I would like to give one example in closing from the Kurdish movement. When I had the honor and privilege to meet one of the leaders, Comrade Riza Altun, many years ago with the late Comrade Judge as well, I was given an opportunity to engage for a long time with that very senior comrade. And when I asked him one question, what has kept you going for all this time to remain committed and principled, unlike some countries post-revolution. He said, it is the book Apo gave me that spoke about the struggles of the people in Africa against colonialism. That is what I was told. And that sustained it. He could tell me of the struggles of the people in Mozambique. Besides South Africa, Umkhonto we Sizwe, the Pan-Africanists, POCO, ZAPO, all the different organizations. He could even explain to me in detail the struggles up north, from the Mau Mau, as well as to those that formed in other parts in Algeria, Tunisia, and so on, including the West as well. So the leaders and those who are the cadres in the Kurdish movement are very familiar with the African struggles. And his words were, keep on doing what you do, because you inspire us to continue with your strength and resolve when you could have chosen differently. It is by choice in your freedom that you've chosen to continue your solidarity with us. And I'd like to also just emphasize the words of late Comrade Oliver Tambo when he said, our solidarity will remain with those who are in the struggles against oppression. Western Sahara, Palestine, as the picture is there in the room behind your comrade, the Kurdish struggle as well. The PKK, the release for Abdullah Öcalan is key to resolving the issue in the Western Asia, Middle East, as well as an inspiration for the rest of the globe. So those are my closing summations, and I thank everybody for being present. Comrade Estelle, Comrade Gacheke, Comrade Jeff, thank you so much for all the work you've done. Comrade Sydney, for being here with us. Comrade Joe, Marco, Nico Allen, Comrade Siraj, who had to leave us. Please convey our profound thanks to him as well. And of course, to those who very ably spent their time here as well, Comrade Gacheke, Comrade Minoo, and Comrade Waringa. We look forward to continuing our work together, and we look forward to the edited version of this afternoon seminar. It's eclipsed much more than the official 2 hours we allocate normally, but it's time well spent, and we've managed to also overcome some of the thorny issues that we must. If you take the analogy from Comrade Abdullah Öcalan when he speaks about self-defense and the symbol of the rose, which Comrade Jeffrey also included in his documentation, that the rose, as beautiful as it is, also has thorns on the stem, and we need to overcome those to get the bloom we want. So on those notes, I thank everybody for your time, strength and solidarity for everybody, and the struggle continues, and it's never been an easy ride, and it won't be, but the fruits of our labor will be born. Thank you very much, comrade.
Thank you.
To all.
Right.
Thank you, Mohammed. That's powerful. Thank you.